you? All right. Remember you're at
Hi everyone, I think we're going to get started. My name is Anita and this is Qandeel and we're with Metaspace. So I want you to first, I would like you first to imagine a time, to think about the last skill that you learned online. What was that experience like? Just think in your head for a second. While you're thinking about it, I'm going to tell you about the last skill that I learned online and kind of the experience that I had, and you can maybe think about whether or not this was something that was similar for you. So when graduate school started, I was thinking, I'm working all the time, I need to find something to do to relax. And so what I was working on was finding a way to relax. So I learned how to play the ukulele. And so like many people do, I went onto the internet, onto YouTube, and just found some simple videos to figure out how to do some strumming patterns and some like basic chords so I could learn how to just play along and sing to relax on the weekends. But as I was doing this, I realized I was also kind of struggling to continue to stay motivated because at some point I kind of felt like, I don't know if I'm learning all the things that I need to learn. I don't really know what's next, and I'm not sure where else I can go besides YouTube to find these resources. And so as you think about your experience of online learning, I feel like often we're entering this new era where we're learning all these new online learning skills, where we're thinking about how can we continue to learn skills for ourselves, but also for our careers. And so what Qandeel and I are really interested in is this idea of how can we help online learners learn new skills. And so we wanted to dive into that. We looked specifically at more structured courses, since that seems to be like a big place where people go these days to get extra skills for their careers. And so we found that this is actually a really big market and a big industry that's continuing to grow. So right now, on these massive open online courses or MOOCs, there's about 58 million registered users using these over all the different types of courses, and there's a really big industry growth. We think it's going to be around 255 million this upcoming year. And so our question was, but are these people actually achieving their desired learning goals when they go online to learn? Like mine was to play ukulele. I'm not sure that I achieved it or not. And other people might go onto Coursera and try to learn some sort of computer science skill, and are we really sure they're learning? And so we looked into this, and there have been some research done, especially around the edX platform, around the amount of people who learn from these platforms. So of the 58 million online learners who are registered, only 55% of them intend to get a certificate. So we're kind of using this as maybe one measure you can look at to see if they're achieving their learning goals. And once you get a certificate, you might take it to your employer to show them, hey, I have this skill, and now maybe put me in this other position. But of these 55% of all these online learners who intend to certify, only 30% of them actually complete their certificate. So they've stated their learning outcome, but they haven't really been able to complete it. And so Qandeel and I were really interested in this idea of how can we really work with the rest of the people, the 70%, to help them achieve their desired learning goal. So we did some research, we talked to different people, we did some surveys, and we want to introduce you to two of the users that we spoke to specifically. One of the users we spoke to, her name is Emily, and so one of her dreams is that she wants to have her own business, and she already has a bachelor's degree, she enjoys learning things, and so, but she feels like she needs to learn some more to get to her one-day dream goal of owning a business. And so she went to online learning. But that experience for her wasn't very satisfying. She felt like she couldn't quite stay motivated, she wasn't really sure why she couldn't continue her work. But she just didn't really have a satisfying experience, so she didn't end up pursuing that further. So she feels like she needs to go back to a structured school. We also spoke to another user, and his name was Jeffrey. Jeffrey has a bachelor's degree in business, and he was working in the area, and then he decided kind of into that. He didn't really fully like that job, so he wanted to move into a quantitative, a skill set. So he went back to online learning, and he went online, and in 6 months, he had learned a lot of data science and actually received a pretty prestigious data science fellowship for another year. And he learned all of that solely through online learning. And we were like, how did you do that? You're part of this 30% that a lot of other people cannot achieve. And so we talked extensively to him about how he did that, and he told us a couple things. One thing that was really insightful for us for him is that he really made a very specific goal for himself and made it really relevant to himself. Another part of this was that he made a plan, and it was pretty detailed about the steps he wanted to accomplish as well as what that looked like. And then he also spent some time looking at the resources that were available to him to do that. And so I'm going to show you really briefly one of the plans he shared with us, he wanted to learn how to rap, and he did this through like compiling different online resources. So at the beginning, you see his purpose is, why do I want to learn this? And there's many sentences that follow this, right? But often people say when they want to learn something, I just want to learn how to rap. Okay, that's my goal. Why do I want to learn this? It's cool. But he actually has very specific reasons that are relevant to him and also relevant that like dig into his real desire to do it. And one thing he didn't list in here was that he actually told us that, not only do I want to learn how to do this, but one of my goals is for it to be social. I usually connect my goal to to a friend in my life so that I have this ability to understand how it might help them. So he wanted to make 1-minute videos for friends that are specifically for them. And then he also has resources. So he created these mentors and maybe more role models that he can kind of look up to and emulate. And he also has some other resources and books that are listed below that we have. So we were thinking, Jeffrey has all these ideas and like he has a plan, he's created it. How can maybe we use some of these skills or some of these ideas that Jeffrey has and maybe help a learner like Emily, who maybe wants to do it but doesn't quite know how to structure it? And so we looked also at the research to look at kind of what this might encapsulate. And so we found out that this is related to self-regulated learning. And so on the next slide, sorry, sometimes this one doesn't go through, does it? On the next slide, we kind of looked at some of the research, and self-regulated learning specifically includes these 3 things. And the first one is like your planning, your monitoring, and thinking about the way that you think, so kind of the metacognitive aspects of learning. And then in the middle one, it's the resource management strategies, so thinking a lot about your environment and like how you're spending the right time learning versus times when you're maybe sleepy or sluggish. And last is really just the actual practice of learning. And so we wanted to use this idea and this idea of self-regulation to really help online learners. And so through our user interviews as well as our surveys, we developed this need. Online learners really need a way to effectively learn how to self-regulate themselves so they can achieve their desired online learning goals. And Qandeel will now tell you a little bit about the prototype that we came up with.
So our solution is called Metaspace, and it is a web-based platform that helps online learners develop self-regulation through peer-guided reflection. So as Anita mentioned the self-regulation model earlier, we decided to focus on the first 2 aspects of that model, which is being able to plan well and being able to navigate through the resources that are available to the learner. These 2 together help online learners develop a sense of metacognition, which is just in the ability to be able to reflect on your own learning, understand what strategies work well for you, and how to plan, how to break down your goals, and how to navigate through the resources. And this is particularly important for the online learners because they have little to no help when they embark on their journey of online learning. So being able to understand what they're learning, what steps they need to take, all of that becomes even more crucial when they do not have any external help. So Metaspace helps them develop a sense of metacognition by helping them define clear goals and being able to self-monitor this progress. And these 2 aspects are facilitated through peer-guided reflection. This is what the platform looks like, and once the user decides to add a new course, they can add the course name and the website that they'll be using for that course, and then they have the option to add a friend who will help them through this journey. And they can see the profile of the friend and the collaborations that they've had in the past. Once they've decided the course and they've added the friend who's going to help them on that journey, they can then add further learning goals within that particular course. So for example, this person is taking a programming course and they have these 2 goals that they want to achieve. And within that goal, they further break it down into steps that they need to take in order to achieve that learning goal. And then they also receive feedback from their friend on that goal. Like it could be something like, well, the time duration seems to be a little off since you do not have the required learning prereqs, or something like that. And then they explicitly trigger the metacognitive process that the learner needs to go through by asking them questions such as, this goal seems to be coding intensive. What are the strategies that helped you in the past when you set a coding intensive goal? What are the things that deter you in such things? So just the user is consciously aware of what they need to do when they're trying to achieve this goal. And then there is a supplement that the users have. This is just a space for them to reflect, to bookmark the feedback that they found important, the resources that they think would be helpful in the future, and just noting the study strategies that help them in achieving certain goals and the study strategies that did not help. And then this is what the peer backend looks like. The peer would be able to see the friends that they're helping and the goals that they have set and the progress that they have made on those goals and if they have requested their feedback on something. So why this peer-to-peer support model? Like why not just data science and artificial intelligence has advanced enough for the computer to automatically be able to give feedback on a particular goal or something? So why we chose to stick to this peer-to-peer support model is because initially we did stick to that and we failed and then we pivoted. So our initial plan was that users really need a way to outline very clear goals, and so we would just have a machine learning model which would give users feedback on those goals and tell them that whether that goal is good according to their learning background, the time duration, etc. But then when we tested that particular prototype, users said that they would much rather get feedback from somebody who cared whether they're able to achieve that goal or not. And from there, we really inferred that people really want a friend through their learning journey. They want somebody who cares and somebody who can help them through it. And then secondly, as Anita mentioned earlier, the more successful online learners usually link their motivators very clearly to some friend or some family member because doing it for somebody rather than themselves helps them stay more motivated. So how is Metaspace different from the peer-guided reflection platforms that sort of already exist, such as Piazza, Stack Overflow, etc., where people go and ask questions and they get response from the community? So these platforms have thousands, possibly millions, such as Stack Overflow. Like they have a community of learners that come together and then they ask each other very, very content-specific questions that can help hundreds of other learners as well. They are general questions. Such as, and on the contrary, Metaspace is about one-on-one peer interaction. It's not about a particular coding problem that you're having, rather it's about why you're having trouble in learning a particular skill at all, or if you're having any motivation issues, or if you're having just trouble strategizing your learning trajectory. So this is how it's different from those, and eventually we know that we are moving towards a world where people will keep going back to the internet resources to develop more and more skills, and we would want Metaspace to be not a separate website but just a browser plugin where you can simply go to any online course and seamlessly integrate the learning goal that you set for that yourself within that plugin. And we have done some preliminary testing on this prototype, and the feedback that we have received is quite encouraging. People love the fact that they can have their learning goals and the courses that they're taking across different platforms all in one place. And then one particularly interesting thing that people said was that sometimes you lose track while taking an online course. You take a few weeks break or something, and when you come back, you just sort of have to find your way to pick the thread back where you left it. Whereas having Metaspace specifically tells you that this is the step that you left on and this is the next step that you need to take in order to achieve your goal. And then lastly, some people came up with this really interesting feedback of having this Fitbit thing where you compare your learning. So they said that they would like to take a course with a friend and then just compare the goals, give feedback to each other on those goals, and just go through that learning journey together and help each other out. So the next steps, we asked ourselves a few questions that we think we can really improve on. The first one was that how do we get people to keep coming back to the platform? There is the incentive of setting goals, like reflecting, the journal and everything, but what more can we do to incentivize people to come back? And then second, a lot of people also through our testing told us that what would incentivize me to be a peer to someone? Like apart from the fact that I'm their friend and I want to help them, how can we scale this? How can we incentivize people? And we thought that one model could be where you sort of gain learning points which can be redeemed on different online learning platforms where you can take a course for free instead of paying for it using your learning points. And then a lot of the process that we are making the users go through is quite manual. Like you have to add your own goal, you request for feedback, you have to break it down into further steps yourself. So how can we automate some of it? We were a little hesitant to do that earlier because we believe that each learner has such an individual and personalized learning trajectory, so just giving them suggested goals or suggested steps might not be that great of an idea, but this is something that we want to think about more in the future. And then we had a lot of help and support throughout this project, and these are just some of the people that we would really want to thank. And that's it. We're open for questions.
also experienced some online learning too, and feeling like I've gotten a little stuck in the mud myself. But I like the emphasis really on the learning strategy and the planning. It's not about the content, right? And just having that extra support and motivation to kind of continue on with a peer, right? I'm curious about what you discovered about how to support the peer in the planning process or the feedback process with the person who's identified them.
Yeah, so I think we thought a lot about that problem, and one thing that we didn't really fully talk about in this presentation was we also think that there is a role that AI or natural language processing could play in also helping maybe kind of figure out questions that they could, like suggested questions that the peer could ask to the person they're working with so that it kind of guides them in that, because I think you're right that we were like, well, the peer may not be trained to ask these questions to go down this path. And so we were also thinking like another next step would be to this idea of like maybe building that part where it's guiding them through that, but we also hope that it's not just a learning experience for the person who's who's actually learning the content, but also learning how to kind of think about it for themselves. So both of them would be learning, but maybe different skills.
Yeah.
So we thought about it, but I think we're still like in the early stages.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great.
This is really good work. One suggestion: there's a lot of intersection between culture and SRL, and so individualistic versus collectivist learners and those sorts of things. So I'm sure you've thought about that, but you may have a platform that adjusts based on, a certain type of intervention may be more efficacious for a certain type of learner, and so. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, we read some research around that, but I think you're right. Like, I think we were thinking maybe this would start in like here, but as it goes to worldwide and 58 million users around the world, we would definitely have to consider like where they're coming from and think about how that relates to how they best learn and how they're best guided through learning.
Could you say a little more about, you said you did some user feedback, like how many people or in what kinds of self-learning tasks were they engaged in?
So we tested this mostly with people within Stanford, or so I did my undergrad from Pakistan, so I also tested it with a few friends from there. And so our pool would be around 15 to 20 individuals, and we just showed them this prototype and we asked them how it would help them. And interestingly enough, they were more excited about the part that, oh, we get to have all our online learning content that we are going through at one spot, and we have all our goals in one spot.
Kind of like a dashboard.
Exactly, yeah. And we sort of had to push them to think more about, do you think the peer part is helpful as well? And they're like, yeah, that's fine too, but they're really excited about it. Yeah.
And so maybe kind of going along that, it also seems like there could be opportunities for us to also think about this other aspect of it that we didn't initially think about in creating.
And I feel like you were absolutely right, because like the people who we interviewed who were more used to social learning, so for example people from the humanities background who were used to having in-class discussions, debates, etc., they were more inclined to be excited about the peer part, that having a friend help them through it, whereas those people who were very computer sciencey, techie, who were just used to just like code on their own for ages or something, they were not that excited about having the peer part. They were like, we are fine without them. So yeah, it really depends learner to learner.
How do you think about selecting for the peer? And also, how do you think about mentor versus peer?
Yeah, so I think one thing that we were thinking about was that you could select your own peer, and the reason for that was because we kind of imagined that maybe you could pick a friend who, if you're like not that comfortable in a subject, maybe you can pick a friend who you're more comfortable with, or maybe a friend who might even have some expertise in the content that you're thinking. But that choice of picking it, we thought would be really important. We also had this part of our prototype where it could also show you how many times you've worked with that peer in the past, so you might also have some history around whether or not they were a good peer for you, whether or not they were. And then also, I think it also showed what other, like if they've mentored other people or if they're currently, not mentoring, but like working with other people. And we talked a lot about the word mentor and whether or not we should use that term. And I think we wanted to use the term peer instead of mentor because they're not content specialists, right? They're helping you through this cognitive process and thinking about your learning. And so I think for us, we felt like the word mentor means so many different things to so many different people, and so we kind of thought the word peer might be a better idea because it's like you're working with someone you know and you trust, and they're kind of helping you think, being almost like an extra brain to kind of process and reflect some of the learning and the learning processes that you do. So that's kind of what we're thinking.
Yeah. So we initially thought about the word mentor, like Anita mentioned, but then we thought that a lot of like experts in the subject material already exist on platforms like Stack Overflow, Coda, etc. So why not just engage with them? So for us, the word peer basically means just a friend who is just there. Like you don't feel completely alone or deserted in that learning journey. You just have a friend who knows what progress you're making, who knows what you're struggling with, and who can just help you out if you're really lagging or something. So it's not a friend who you would go to ask that, oh, I'm really struggling in doing exercise 3, I don't think like I understand it, can you explain it to me? Rather it would be like, I'm really struggling with exercise 3, what do you think I did wrong in this learning goal that I'm not able to do it? And then that peer would just help them reflect on what they need to do, or maybe some resource that they need to use or something. It's just about that, yeah.
I really love the concept of like a dashboard for your classes across all these platforms. I think it's something that doesn't exist, and I wonder if you guys have thought about the capacities that would afford for self-regulation on maybe a more macro scale, like being confronted with the fact that you started 6 different courses and you haven't finished any of them. Maybe like other people saying that to you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that that's like an important thing to realize. Like, I think of that, like in reading books, it's like you start so many books, but you never finish any of them, and so I feel like in some ways it's like that, but for online learning courses. So I think that's definitely an opportunity that we can work on in the future.
And then we also thought about this, that if I am, for example, if I am helping Anita through a course, like if I am her peer, and I see that she has like 7 other courses and she has 20 goals that have all turned orange because she hasn't touched them in ages, we can, there could be like a poke button or something, like just some friendly sort of thing that could be like, Anita, you need to, just poke her or something. And we feel like one thing that helps a lot of learners is have some sort of social accountability. So if she tells me that she's going to achieve this learning goal or this step by the end of next Sunday, and then she's going to pay me or something, and if she doesn't do that, I could get a notification that, hey, you need to poke Anita to make sure that she is on track or something. So yeah, that's something we have also thought about.
Great presentation, very innovative idea. On the peer-to-peer, it sounds like there's 2 components here, right?
Yeah.
There's this dashboard that seems to be getting a lot of traction, and then there's this peer-to-peer component. And this peer is sort of serving as a coach in a lot of ways. And one of the things, I'm just wondering how, if any, mechanisms you have or plan to have that would give people permission to, because it's like, well, maybe I do have 6, books or courses open, whatever, but I don't really, like, is there some kind of mechanism where it's okay to ask me about this? Or, don't ask me about things for 4 weeks because I'm going on a 3-week vacation. So I'm just, because a lot of this is about permissions. Even with my own coaching, in career coaching, I feel like you have to know what you have permission to ask about and if anything's off the table. So are there any mechanisms that you're thinking about for setting those parameters?
Well, one specific one that we had talked about earlier was like, what if I'm a peer and I get inundated with like 20 requests, and I obviously cannot do that for everyone. And so we thought about one permission is just having the ability to be like, okay, I'm only going to be able to take in like 2 people at a time. So that way you really are giving quality feedback or quality, working with them. So I feel like that was one we had thought about initially, but I do think you're right in that there must be more that we have to think about. Like if I'm gone for 4 weeks, it shows, okay, like I'm not going to have internet access, so don't bother me because I'll be back and I'll work on it then.
Yeah, and we have this like settings button for the student, and that settings button could be like receive notifications or allow the peer to poke me or something like that. So you can switch on or off those notifications, and then you can also make it peer specific so that if I am helping her, I can't bother her with the rest of the courses she's taking. I can only like see what she's doing in that particular course. So these are all things that could be possibly manipulated in the settings page.
Hi, let me just explore this with you. I've started 3 MOOCs now, and I haven't completed any of them, but I've learned an awful lot. Now, is there some way in which you could build into this that it is legitimate and acceptable? Because I think the online learning and the MOOCs really challenge our preconceptions about what a course is.
Yeah.
So is there some mechanism that you could get something out maybe the
Yeah.
peers could, accredit it. There's nothing wrong
Right.
about not
Yes.
finishing the MOOC.
Absolutely. That was the entire purpose of having the goals thing. So maybe that person who enrolled in the programming abstractions course, maybe they just wanted to learn
Yeah,
the person
absolutely.
background, just that. So that is absolutely fine. And a lot of online learners go to MOOCs just to learn one or two specific skills from that course. So the idea is that you should be able to complete the learning goals that you set for yourself. So for example, like in this, so for example, like from this course might have like 20 different topics, but this person just wants to achieve these two. And if they're able to achieve these two, then they're good to go. Because the idea is not to help them achieve the completion of that course, but it's just to help them achieve their desired learning outcomes, what they want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, but we definitely agree that like when we first started it, we're like, oh, certifications is so low, but then we realized that many people go to it just to learn this one piece or refresh a skill that they might use at work. And so we built this thinking about the idea that you can make your own goal.
Thanks.
Probably have time for one more question.
Just a comment, you mentioned that at the beginning, just in terms of your presentation, you had all of the 58 million, and then you circled back right now when this gentleman asked that question. I think that's something that could be really useful in here, like what did you get what you wanted from this course, and your peer could comment on that, and it's like, okay, we're done with that, and it's not, and that didn't come across through the entire piece, and maybe it was a lack of time, but I think it could be really valuable given the fact that most people aren't reaching a certain certification.
Yeah, I think we were trying to find actual statistics around that, a specific number, like whether or not people reach their learning goals, and that was actually surprisingly really hard to find. Like I couldn't find any. I don't think I found
we really
any.
tried, but like there's not a lot of research to find exact number as to how people are able to achieve their learning goals. Most of the research is just around attrition rates in MOOCs, like how many people drop out, which is not an accurate method because I have taken a lot of MOOCs and just I wanted to like listen to one lecture or like just do 2 lectures or something. So yeah.
I think that's time. Thank you
Yeah,
guys so
thank
much
you
for
so much.